thank you all for coming along, and we're going to cover today some of the components of weight reduction and focus on the mind. The reason we focus on the mind is because nutrition plays a vital component on weight reduction. It's very significant, nutrition. We're going to go into details why. It's probably about this time of year, well, maybe a few weeks late now. Early January is when I get the telephone just buzzes daily, people calling endlessly, emailing, asking about weight reduction, hypnosis, that you do that hypnosis stuff, can you help me reduce weight? It's almost like the expectation is, have you got this magic wand, I'll come in for a session, walk out and I've lost 2 or 3 stones, so to speak. To many people's disappointment when you tell them, actually, you know what, it doesn't quite work that way. I don't know where they've read or what they've heard somewhere. But the point being, a lot of it centers around our eating, and where I come in is more around the relationship with food, the person and food relationship, because we all have a relationship with food, and that is significant in reducing weight, because food is energy and has calories, and the key point being is that depending on what we eat, contributes to weight. So it's almost like taking control of one's life, and we've all been there. I'm sure you've been there yourselves. I've been there before, where things spiral out of control. I think for me, food can be one of the biggest sources of comfort, really, because it's quick. It can alter your state like this. It really can, and there's a lot out there too. You only got to drive into any town centre on the motorway, the freeway, and you've got every sort of chain lined up with all these beautiful pictures and these nice pictures of wonderful, what looks wonderful anyway. So it's really, really tempting, our association to it. I think if you're not being hit by advertisement campaigns, social media campaigns, it's not easy. And the brain being implicit, it kind of puts 2 together. And not to mention the stuff that goes in there too, and also the sugar rush as well. That sort of quick blast and the way we feel after it, and chemicals in the food. And that can be almost addictive in itself. Eating certain types of food, you never tend to feel better afterwards, by the way. You always feel better. You always feel a little bit better at the point of consumption. But beyond consumption, you always tend to know about it. And that's not suggesting that moderation, or that's not suggesting that, okay, sometimes it's okay to eat that sort of stuff. But the point being is when it becomes your dominant source of calorie intake. And that becomes a problem. And that's the sort of thing we want to focus on. Obesity is a huge problem around the world today. Huge problem around the world, and I think for me there's a lot of other problems it brings as well to the table too, because obesity doesn't just stop there. People know the correlation with obesity and many other conditions. Now, I'm not a medical expert, but I read the literature, and we know these days that we've got too much sugar in our food, we've got too many preservatives, too many chemicals in our food, and we know the correlation between that and many other conditions too. What I would say is genetic. I'm going to sort of throw my sort of thoughts into it here too, because the difficult thing is that no 2 people are going to eat the same food and have the same reaction, generally speaking. And that's the fact of the matter, because people are going to be saying, well, I know someone who eats and drinks and does what they want, and they're 150 years old type thing. And that's probably the case. So the human being an open system, it's hard to predict how things are going to go. And that's one of the challenges for me, because genes play a big role. So we can put the nature-nurture debate to bed now. It's about, we've got these genes, and then how to express in the environment is a key factor. And I think for me, generally speaking, you sort of know what food works for you. After you've eaten it, you've got a good idea of whether it's doing you any good or bad. All that said and done, it's probably not practical in this world that we live in to say, you know what, I'm going to banned myself from eating all these wonderful things I've indulged in for many, many years, as you do. Does anyone know which country leads the way in obesity, which we're in the world at the moment?
America.
It is, yeah, America, yeah, they're up there. The last time I sort of read any sort of report in the literature was America, Mexico, Australia, the big ones. And the UK is not a million miles behind. It's getting there. It's moving up the ranks, and so is the continent too. They're creeping up as well. And I can only think of because the sort of lifestyle we have is based around that sort of, westernized, fast food. No time to eat at a table, quick, grab, smash and grab, eat whatever, indulge. And I think activity level too is dropping, diminishing.
There's more food available though, isn't there?
There is indeed.
People are not struggling for food.
No, precisely. Not in the way they used to do. But the irony is, that's a great point, because when food was sort of rationed and food was based on consumption, and that's not suggesting that rationing is a good thing, but it's sort of highlighting how when it was, people tend to be more healthier, in the sense that you look at the literature, there was less comorbidity, less conditions related to the way we've got now. The increase in diabetes, the increase in a lot of these conditions and health conditions, and a lot of that might be down to, if we could call it food, what's being produced these days. And that processed stuff that it's frightening. I mean, I wonder sometimes, and I like to juice in the morning and think, okay, I put all the effort in doing it. That said, I don't even know if that cucumber's got nutritional values in the way it's been produced. Because cucumbers shouldn't all look the same shape and the same way. And you think if it was grown from the farm, this should be, different. So you kind of worry sometimes in the way, in the production line that we, we come along. And, is it worry really? Because you could argue that we are living longer, but I think we're living longer, but less well. I mean, people are less well, I think, in my opinion. That's anecdotal. I don't have the research to back that up. But I think for me, you just only got to look at, just generally speaking, I think people tend to suffer more. And I do think nutrition's got a big correlation with that. I mean, there has been a lot of evidence to suggest that nutrition plays a big role. In neurogenesis, for example, in the production of new cells in the brain, we've seen certain types of nutrition helps produce new cells in the hippocampus. Things like blueberries, it's been proven to have a big impact. And not only that, also exercise and stuff like that too. But it's been proven that, so there is plenty of research to suggest that, very much so. But no one can say that one thing's going to go the same for somebody else, because it's genes and environment. That's the key. But the long and short of it is, for me, and people can debate me on this if they want to, it's probably a little bit outdated, but making it simple. So, okay, so if you're burning, say, 2,500 calories a day, and you're consuming, say, 2,500, you're in energy balance. Okay, so if you consume that much and you burn that much, taking your BMI into consideration, activity levels and so on and so forth, calories in, calories out. Okay, you need to go into deficits to reduce weight. So that's where it makes sense to me to eat high nutritional food. I wouldn't say get hung up on calories, by the way, because the nutritional values in food are really important too. Just in the way that people say, well, sugar, fruit has sugar in it. But the offset for me, the payoff is fruit also has nutritional value in there. So as long as you're not eating 25 watermelons, then, so be it. You can get away with eating a few slices here and there. So I wouldn't go too far to one side, unless you've been recommended a certain type of diet for health reasons. For me, I think that fruit, the value you get from the nutrition offsets, I think, in my opinion, the fact that it's not processed sugar. It's not processed sugar, so I think it's okay. That's the key, to cut processed sugar as much as one can do. And that's something to think about. The thing for me is about using a way to tap into the unconscious mind. The way we've been programmed unconsciously, conditioned unconsciously, over a lifetime. Now, the classic example I used, I've said before, and I'll sort of repeat the story again to show you how you're primed by the marketing people, was when I was walking the streets of London one time after a seminar, and I had the cortisol levels flowing in the blood, and I wasn't going to sleep very well, so I thought I'd take a walk. And as I take this sort of walk in London, that sort of big screen they've got out there, I noticed sort of this commercial, I wonder what's going on. These women were drooling over this guy in this commercial. They're sort of drooling all over him, and their faces are like, just drooling over this guy. And this guy's being hoisted on a sort of ledge, and he's got like this six-pack. It looks like one of them Greek gods, these Adonis type guys, And I'm wondering, what is this all about? And there's music, and then all I hear was, it's 11:30. 11:30, 11:30, and me being the cynic that I am, I stood back and sort of prevented the invasion of my senses and thought, what's going on here? I said, that's classical conditioning, in the sense that, okay, 11:30, 11:30, 11:30 is the anchor. It's putting it into the person's head. So in the end, what I was going to say is that if you had me doing the advertisement, I'd be like this. Well, here you go. Here's water, chemicals, and about 15 sugars. Would you pay £1.50 if I advertise it that way? You tell me where to go. But what they do, and I won't mention the drink, by the way, because I don't want to advertise them. But the drink that they, I was going to say, but I better not say it. But I won't mention the drink. But basically, that's what they did. It was the old advert. I don't know if you remember the advert. I'll mention it. The Coke advert, the Diet Coke, 11:30. So it's classic conditioning, where what they're doing is they've got this guy who represents a picture of health. They link the two with the women drooling over him. Then you've got the music. Then you've got 11:30 over and over again. And then people wake up at 11:30 in the morning. They don't wake up then, but the off's at 11:30, and they're wondering why they want the Diet Coke, whatever it is that they're advertising, because the stimulus is in their hand then. And this goes on not just in that campaign, all around us. And you can't have empathy for people because it's hard to break that. You're being primed subconsciously, strategically. It really is, and it's hard to break that cycle. It wouldn't have done nothing for me, and I don't need too many window cleaners who look that way, by the way. I won't upset my window cleaners. Most window cleaners are probably great people, but this doesn't happen very often. We might get one here now, as you do. But the point being, it's the way it is, and they prime. And priming being is sort of, you're cued. So, for example, if I write this, if I write that and I talk about food, what word do you make out of that? Exactly. And if I talk about cleaning products, what do you make out of that? Exactly. And they know strategically, from a social psychology point of view, that it only takes a bit of spray in the supermarket for people to sort of purchase cleaning products. It only takes the bakery. The smell of bakery gets me all the time. I mean, for me, bread is not good because I can control it. But the issue I've got with bread is once I start, I don't stop. I get stuck again. I've got to do a session on myself to break it again, as you do. So I avoid it. I just don't go down there. Whenever I go into the shopping outlet and I see the bread aisle, I kind of think, you know what? I'm gonna divert here. I'm not going down there. And it's tough. It really is. So I want you to take that into consideration. That's where the mind comes in. That's why hypnosis, for me, I mentioned earlier, is about getting into the unconscious mind and creating new patterns in the brain around food and new associations. So next time you go for that soft drink, you don't see that window cleaner. You have a figment of me saying, there's water and chemicals and sugar, and you're not going to touch it. ever again, you know? And that's the whole point, to reassociate to that food, because they do that and they create an emotional stimulus to that association to provide compulsion, and it's a huge thing. It really is.
Can be linked to your emotions as well. Can't you remember
yes.
when we did that session when the lady drank tea with sugar and it was because she was the mum?
Yes, it is indeed, and it's a great point. So we've got the emotional eaters too that have a link between the food and chocolate and love, and it can be really deep, as well as what we've talked about before. So food is energy. A calorie is a unit of energy. That's all a calorie is. The human body needs calories to survive. Okay. There are new theories now around this area, and you can debate one or the other. And for simplicity, I'm going to use calorie because it's an easy way to understand that what we eat implicates the way we are. In nutrition, everyday language, calories refers to consumption for eating and drinking and energy for physical activity. Okay, so we burn calories for physical activity, and for consuming, eating and drinking, we sort of also consume calories too. How many calories? So 1 gram of carbohydrates is 4 calories. So 1 gram of carbs is 4 calories. Okay. Now 1 gram of protein is 4 calories. 1 gram of fat is 9 calories. Okay, so not all fat is bad fat, by the way. Some fat is good and is necessary as well. But it gives you an idea that not all food is equal in calorie in that respect. Okay, so the first thing people do is they say, I'm going to burn it off. Who's ever done that before? I'm going to burn off the weight. Exactly. Does it burn off? And it's almost unfair because you can be on a treadmill for an hour and you think you've burnt off, but you haven't burnt off a great deal. You really haven't. To give you an idea, roughly speaking, who knows how much a cheeseburger has, calorie-wise? A rough guess on the cheeseburger.
480.
480 is not a bad guess. About 860.
Oh my.
A cheeseburger. 860 calories. Guess how much 1 pound of fat is? 3,500 calories is 1 pound. Okay? So when you think about it, we're going to get back to that later. So 860 calories for a cheeseburger. You would need to run on a treadmill. On a treadmill for an hour, guess how much calories roughly you'll burn off an hour run? About 200 calories.
It's not nothing, is it, that?
It's incredible, isn't it? It really is. So you
to
about
run for
4 hours to
hours
run that
to have a
cheeseburger off.
It's not
4
worth
hours.
it.
You know, you're talking like 15 to 20 hours to run, 4 hours to run a cheeseburger off. And you're talking about, say, 15 hours to run off a pound of, without consuming nothing. So from this point here, you need to run for the next 15 hours to burn off that pound without consuming nothing else. And that would be dangerous. I don't recommend doing it. You'd probably dehydrate, it'd be dangerous. I wouldn't do it. It's not a good idea, but it gives you an idea, okay, how tough it is. And you're probably saying, well, why train? Well, train is important because it helps to speed up the metabolism, but also there's many other health benefits. And when you're training, you're not eating. And when you feel better after training, you're not going to eat either too. Endorphins in the brain. So now I don't need to go to that drive-through to eat that, whatever it is that they're selling. I feel good. I'm not stopping there. Okay? And when I get home, I feel so damn good because my endorphins are still going in the brain. I'm going to eat something that's high in nutritional value. I'll eat a salad or vegetables. I'm going to just do something I enjoy doing. I feel better, or have a time out, so to speak. So training is really important, it's imperative. The danger of training around weight reduction is we sort of start to think that now I can eat anything I want. And that's where the people make a big mistake. That's why you've got a lot of big reduction. People they join gyms in January and they give up. And the reason they give up is because they think, okay, I've joined now, I've solved all my issues, but the weight reduction doesn't happen. What they've got to focus on is training is great. It's got many health benefits. It really has. And that's proven for the brain, endorphins, neurogenesis, aerobic training, neurogenesis, social benefits. There's not one piece of literature I've read, unless someone's got a specific condition medically or someone's got an injury where training isn't good. There isn't one source of literature that I've read. If someone can find me something otherwise, do enlighten me. So it is great, it is important. Of weight reduction, it's adjacent to sorting out one's nutritional plan. And for me, the thing is really, I see it too, where people, there's the old adage, well, the person who goes away and they have a personal trainer, for example, and they tell the personal trainer, well, actually, I've been eating well. Well, if you're eating well, you'll reduce, broadly speaking. But I am eating well, and I must have something wrong, or something's or whatever. Well, there's a chance there could be, and if there is, it's always best to go to the doctor to see organically if there's anything wrong. There's also a very good chance that you forget that chocolate bar that you have every day. You don't realise you're having it. Because then all of a sudden the straw man becomes a trainer. It's like, I'm doing everything you told me to do, why aren't I losing? But are you doing what you've been told to do? Or you're having the extra chocolate bar every day, that's about 600-700 calories, on top of the energy deficit. Okay, and for me, that's why I say, is, with that in mind, have a weekly diary. Write down what you're eating, and just be true to yourself. You know, and it's taking responsibility. You know, telling your clients to take responsibility and say, you know what, are you really eating well? You might not be too far off the mark, by the way. It might be just a slight degree of variation, but that slight degree could be just enough to tilt the balance. Have a weekly plan. If you want to email me, I'll send you a weekly planner. I send my clients where they sort of can document. And they've got to be true and honest with themselves. No BS to say, well, actually, I didn't have that. If you're coming home at 10 o'clock at night and you're having a chocolate cake with a cup of tea, I can guarantee you that you're not going to wake up one morning and you're 3 or 4 stone over the weight you want to be, but I can guarantee in about a year you will be. And it's a bit idealistic to think you can lose it in a week or two. I always say that people take at least a third of what it took to put on. So if it took you a year to put on, 3 or 4 months to make that transition in a safe way. And people say to me, well, I know someone who got it all off in 2 weeks, and well, fads don't work. I'm sorry, but fads do not work. They're rubbish, they don't work, they put people's health at risk, and they're not sustainable. If you're an actor or an actress and you've got a movie coming up and you've got top trainers and people looking after you, making sure your well-being is good to get into shape for a thing, then you've got a chance. If you're like everyday person like us, getting up, going to work and doing school runs and doing work and everything else, it's not practical. No, we can't get by on eating, spinach leaves every day. We need to eat a balanced diet. That's the challenge. To do so, why exercise? Well, better quality of life, good for the mind. There's a correlation with serious illness and less likely to have. It helps to burn some calories and it's the enjoyment factor too, okay, which is key. So let's just write some exercise activities you enjoy doing, some stuff that you do enjoy doing. You just want to take the time to think about things you like to do. Country walks, on a day like today, it's beautiful out there. You sort of get the fresh air and walk and squash, badminton. I love the classes, they're great. Social interaction, they're good for people, I think. They're really good. I think they're really, really good. So just to reiterate this component now, to lose and maintain weight, nutrition is the key. Burn more calories than you consume. So the average male needs 2,000 to 3,000 calories per day, depending on size, activity level. Average female like 2,000. That's sort of roughly speaking.
To maintain.
Yes. Metabolic rates is how many calories we burn at rest. Okay. A very rough way is to estimate, is to multiply your body weight in pounds by 11. Okay. So your metabolic rate, how much you burn at rest. So you sat here till tomorrow doing nothing, you'd burn calories. A very rough way to calculate that is that, let's say for example, one weighs 200 pounds, you would multiply that by 11 and you'd get 2,200. Okay, so you'd burn that at rest. That's your metabolic rate. How many calories you burn at rest. So your pounds times by 11, that gives you an idea how much you'll burn at rest. Okay, so to give you an idea where you're up to. So a body that consumes 2,500 calories per day and burns 2,500 will stay the same. We burn calories for basic energy. So 60 to 75% of your bodily functions require calorie consumption, food processing, digestion activity. So you burn stuff anyway, about 10% food processing and just general bodily function as well. It goes towards that. But if you're consuming 2,500, you burn 2,500, you're going to stay the same. And when you think about that, it's not difficult to tilt the balance and consume that little bit more than what you're burning. Okay, it's only an extra chocolate bar a day that's about 300 calories. In a week, it's about, say, half a pound. In a month, you've put on maybe 2 or 3 pounds. Okay, in a damn 6-month period, you put on maybe more. But the point being is that it's not easy because, you know, we go through stuff in life. People go through setbacks, you know, bereavements, breakups, turbulent times, and food's always a source for a lot of people for comfort. So I wouldn't be too hard on yourself and think, oh no, it's not about beating yourself up, it's, you know, saying, okay, I've got this issue, I'm going to solve it. And the quickest way to do that, for me, is just think about what you're eating throughout the week. Less carbonated drinks, less refined sugar, if you can. I mean, I still have a sugar in my coffee. I have a couple every day. It's okay. It's not a problem. I've not got to that point where, you know, I think that you've got to get the balance. I've had this conversation with certain people in the fitness industry. A naturopath one time, I was working on a retreat one time. I won't disclose where it was, but this guy was just one of those real fitness freak type people, if that's the politically correct word you could use. But he was like, you know, fitness this or fitness that, and I'm like, you know, I can't live on lettuce every day. I said, by the way, there's a good chance you might get hit by that bus over there one day. So there's the sort of, there's a fine line, isn't there? You know, I'm willing to sort of sacrifice a few years and have a few pizzas and pasta and that sort of stuff as you do. I said, and by the way, you might need a few pounds if you get the flu or a cold. So the point being is that let's sort of get the balance here. But do cut things like sweeteners and colours and processed foods because it's a good idea to do so. Eat more fruits and veggies, okay? And more organic stuff if you can. Omega-3 is really important, by the way. It really is omega-3 for many functions. And drinking water. Water's key. It's hard to drink water. We all get in a situation where I prefer to drink my water, coffee as my water, as you do. But unfortunately, it does the opposite effect. So the way I do the fruits and veggies is I make a juice every morning, and it sort of ticks a box. A smoothie is better, I think, in one sense, because you get the more nutritional rich stuff, but for me, the juice is more practical. For lunch, I tend to eat veggies. I'll sort of go down to, if they've got the, what do you call those, carveries. There's a place near where I live, I wouldn't say struck a deal, but they sort of see me coming when I'm in the area, and they just give me like a takeaway vegetable curry thing for a few pounds. And I think that for the cost it would take for me to make all that, so so that's one way to consume it, and you're on the way. And then you don't feel as bad on weekend. We think, you know what, I'm going to just indulge a bit here, which is key. It really is. It's key to have that, I think anyway, and because there's got to be a fine line, you know, and I won't mention the name again, but getting back to this naturopath again, you can see he hit a raw nerve in me, by the way. But the point being, he's one of the sort of types of people that, when the discussion, he was talking about his children, 2 young children, and to the point where he said that, this is how strict he was. He goes, he's at this party, and his children wanted to eat. They were having this sort of, you know, when you break I don't know what it is, you've got to break and all these lollies come out, yeah. And he goes, he wouldn't let the children join in. I said, why wouldn't let them join in? Because my children don't eat that stuff. I said, are you all right? Are you okay? And he goes, well, no, I'm strict. I said, dude, it's, you know, it can't be a good thing for a couple of young kids seeing everybody else eating. Because other parents don't want their kids, I do what I want my kids. I said, that's not easy, you know. I'm not saying what you shouldn't do, but dude, you know, there's a fine line. I would rather they eat than have to see someone years later for not eating. Don't give them the complex, man. That's not good. That is not good. There's got to be a balance there. You know, I think, in my opinion, there's a good chance the kids eat. Yeah, I'm not telling people they should bring their kids or shouldn't bring them up, but I think there's a bigger chance of giving them a complex about food and the food itself. And that's for all of us, not just kids. I think that the worry about what we're eating is probably more problematic, I think, sometimes. You know, you end up with, like, some of the people who almost get sort of neurotic about food. You know, like reading labels and asking questions and doing this. And I can fully appreciate people need gluten-free diets and stuff like that's okay. But generally speaking, sometimes you get stuck in that situation. You get so petrified. It's got sugar, it's got this, it's got that. It's not a good place to be, I think. So, you know, you can sort of bear that in mind, but do sort of think, you know, I wouldn't get too hung up about, you know, the consumption in that respect. Just get an idea. Maybe the 80-20 rules are the right way to go forward. What we'll do, before we sort of have a short intermission, is you sort of start creating a goal, I think. If you've got your clients, then you can start with a goal. And the goal, the way I use an acronym. The acronym I use is LASER. Why do I use LASER? Because it's easy for me to remember. Okay? So with your client, what you do is you take them through the process, is ask them, well, what do they want? The L is for list, or the weight they want to be. So list in positive terms. Okay? And that could be very specific. What I want is to be that in that wedding dress, that suit size. I want to be, say, stone or whatever. It's really important, very specific what you want to be. Okay, I want to be 100-something pounds. And do be careful too when you get clients coming to see you, by the way, when they sort of say they want to be a certain weight. And obviously you kind of think, well, actually, that's not a really good idea. It's not for me when people say what healthy range is, but equally in saying that someone comes to see me and they say they want to be a certain weight, and obviously they are quite thin anyway, then alarm bells go off. I'm like, well, actually, hold on. Maybe you want to speak to someone about that. And I've had that before. People come to see me, weight reduction, you kind of think, well, actually, you know what? I think it's a better idea to get help in that respect. But listing what you want is key. And also when you're sort of designing the actual training for them, list what you want. It gives you an idea of how practical it is to get there. I had a client recently and I asked her to list what she wanted to be weight-wise, and she hadn't been that weight she wanted to be for like 20 years, and she wanted to get there in about a month. And I said, sorry to run on your parade, I don't think you can get there through working with me. Well, she goes, I'll go somewhere else. I said, good idea. She goes, that's not what I want to hear. I said, well, I'm not going to BS anybody. 2 weeks later, she comes back and she's saying, you know what, I've sort of realised, you know, you're right. Okay? I said, I'm not saying you can't get there at all. That's, who knows? I'm just saying that, okay, cross that bridge when you get there. So set something that is attainable. Okay? Set something that's attainable. And when I say attainable is okay through the actions you're going to take. Okay? So attainability. Food reduction, nutritional foods. And I've sort of had suggested people go see nutritionists in the past as well. I know a bit about nutrition, a fair bit about it, but it's not my specialty. My specialty is dealing with the mind. But I've also said maybe go away and see someone to help them with that as well. I've also made suggestions people go see the medical people in case it's something organic. It could be a thyroid problem, it could be a sugar problem, diabetes problem. I had one client recently and I suggested you go see a GP because of a prevalence of diabetes in the family. And I said, well actually, because she indulged a lot in sugar. So the obvious thing could have been for me to say, well, cut your sugar, because she's indulging in it. I actually said to her, you know what, before you do that, can I make a suggestion? Go see a GP to get checked. I'm not a medical person, but it concerns me, you've mentioned there's a prevalence in your family. So cutting sugar could be a dangerous thing for you at this point. So go see and see what comes back. If you're okay, great. Yeah, cut sugar back. If you're not, then you're going to have to look at, because obviously with diabetes you've got two main different types. So these are things to consider as well. And how will you feel when you get there? So how will you feel when you are the weight you want to be? That's the motivation for me. We'll feel emotion when you're the weight you want to be, that wedding dress, that suit size, and they're sort of key things for me.
Is that on the air or the air?
Oh, sorry, that's the sensory perception, yeah.
It's what sensory
Yeah,
has, sorry.
yeah, that's okay. So that's like we'll feel emotionally, see, hear, feel.
Yeah.
And that's really important because think, okay, well I see, hear and feel when I get where I want to get to. That's the motivation, I think. I think feeling good about oneself is what it's all about. That personal gratification. What I would say too is that one way to look at it is this way. One way I sort of look at it is if say you lost a stone, for example, if you lost a stone, one way of looking at it is say, let's say someone gave you a bag that weighed a stone. You had to walk up and down those stairs. If you could take that stone off and walk up and down those stairs, it's much better for your joints, for your body, but for your well-being. Okay? And you get to an age where, you know, obviously some people have got kids, some of us got kids and stuff like that. And you know, play with them, and some people have got grandkids and that sort of stuff. And I mean, it's just sort of playing with friends and family and stuff like that. It's a big thing. It really is, you know, and I think for me, you know, age catches up with all of us. There's no denying that. Obviously, you know, that's not saying people of any age. Some people who are chronologically a certain age, fit and healthy, could outdo someone a third their age. But the point being, age does catch up with all of us to the point that it's not easy. But looking after ourselves can make a big difference. I think so, for sure. And I think that one area that it's notable when you sort of, you know, playing sports, kicking the ball about, that sort of stuff. It's a big thing, I think. Anyway, so going shopping, doing daily stuff, and that's the you know, for me, the ecology is important too. What's the consequence of achieving your goal? The ecology. So it's like the consequence of achieving the goal. You might say, well, why would it be a bad consequence? Well, the reason being is that you've got to be singing from all the same hymn sheet. You know, you've got to have support. You really do. Okay? Sometimes subconsciously, we don't want to reduce for various reasons. Now, many years ago, it was about 1998. I'll never forget this session I did. It was in London. I had a practice in London, and I was dealing with the mind and physical components to performance. And this client came in, and he brought his wife in. He's a very affluent guy, really, really affluent. And he brought his wife in to see me for some sessions for weight reduction. And the gentleman came into the session, he sat down too, and he goes, I went to help my wife. And I found it quite interesting that he sort of spoke for her, but that was okay. And he said, if you could do some work with her. And I said, can I still have a moment with her? And I spoke about what she wanted to achieve, the weight reduction sort of stuff really. Then I spoke to him, and I pulled him to one side. I said, if you don't mind, let's go talk outside. And I spoke to him outside the actual premises. I said, do you want your wife to lose or reduce in weight? He goes, I do. I wouldn't have brought her to see you. I said, what's a good point? Can I put my point across? And I tell her like it is. I'm that sort of character. In case you don't know me by now, I'm quite polite, but I do tell her like it is. I said, actually, as it happens, I think you don't want her to reduce. And he goes, how do you know that? It's because in my field, we study behaviour, and I sort of studied your behaviour, and I've come to the conclusion that you do not want her to reduce. You are what I call enabler. You actually are going to go home now. There's a very good chance you're going to say, you know what, I brought you to do that. And you're going to criticise her even more, but you're going to load all the cupboards with stuff that she shouldn't be eating. I said, am I correct? He said, you're right. I don't want her to lose, because if she reduces weight, she probably won't want to be with me no more. She might find someone else. And he bleated it all out. It all came out. I said, my friend, you need help more than she does. And I'm not going to take on as a client, because you got more gravitation on it than me, and so it should be that way. So I'm not taking it on board as a client, not for now, but you need to sort yourself out. Because the bottom line is that the ecology is key. If someone's going to sabotage the work you've done with someone, you've only got it for an hour, then what chance do they got? And I'm not taking money off people who aren't going to put the effort in. So, you know, the whole point being is that it's got to be a collective thing. It really does. Okay, that's not saying that in every family you're going to have everyone sort of pulling together, but the key thing is got to be the right consequence. Okay, it's got to mean something to you as well, strong enough why, desire to get there. Okay, if you've got a wedding coming up in 6 months, you want to be in a certain shape. If you've got a holiday coming up, it is a consequence of health. Okay, so the motivation we'll look at after the break. The motivation being a way towards, a way being what are the negative consequences of being the way I am, what are the positive consequences towards. And the final part is resources, responsibility, and road ahead. What resources do you have? What responsibility will you take? And what route will you take? And that's key, because for me, you've got to take full responsibility. Okay? You have to take full responsibility for the situation you're in, not accountability. It's not entirely your fault. It's none of us' fault. I don't like the idea of people beating people up more than they need to beat themselves already anyway. The person who's overweight, they've beaten themselves up already anyway. It's enough beating themselves up. You've got there. It's not a problem. Happens to everybody. It's happened to me. It probably will happen again, because these things fluctuate. Happen to all of us. Okay, and it's multiple reasons. People have, pregnancies. They have children. They have stressful events in life. They have bereavements, and we know what food can be a source of comfort, and so on and so forth. So, but responsibility for getting it off is key, because the trainer can't do it for you. They can only guide you, just like the driving instructor can't drive for you. Resources, okay, you can't always do things on your own. For me, I think sometimes it's not weakness to find somebody, and I always say to people, the investment of, say, getting a trainer or coach can be useful too. People say, well, because we might know the answers, but having someone to help us stay accountable and responsible can be a useful thing too. I really think you can't always do things on your own. 2 minds are better than one. And sometimes it might be a good idea to get someone to help you to get there, or buddy up with someone. Do like a Facebook group or a social media group, or the local gym, or find a local trainer to help along. And I think sometimes we sort of undermine that investment, It's like, okay, take a £200 package for Christmas or a birthday to see a trainer, but you can't put a price on the investment for me in what you get out of it. Because what price do you put on being, that weight you want to be, being able to sort of play with the kids, not being breathless, being able to sort of fit into that wedding dress and that sort of stuff really. And that's not sort of going on for business. I don't even work in this area anyway. It's not my area. I'm not sort of touting for business because I don't work in this area anyway. I pretty much research now and just present my findings. But I'm just saying, because people feel it's a sign of weakness to get help. It's not a sign of weakness. We've all been there. I've had coaches. I've seen people in the past. I've had issues before that I've needed help with, and I've gone to see people. I make no secret in saying that, and whatever price I've paid, I'll do an experiential session with you anyway. I think why not? You're here anyway, so we'll do that. So is that okay? So a short, maybe 5-minute break, and then we'll go experiential. Thank you.
Somebody tried to ring him.
Okay, there we go. Yeah, it's always the way.